Serious Reddit, what's your scariest, most disturbing true story? Not nearly as serious, but a little creepy. My neighbor is an old lady. She comes outside once in a while to chat with passerbys and garden. The first conversation she had with my dad, she complimented the painting he has hanging in his bedroom. No big deal. She probably saw us moving it in, or glimpsed it at some point, before we got curtains. But then she meets our dog and says, well, he's much scarier through the window, isn't he? Again, NBD, we know he has a habit of pushing aside blinds to stare outside. She comments on things like this often, asking us why we didn't walk our dog that morning, or when we got a new sofa. But she's just an old lady, right? She's probably bored and outside a lot. Then she meets me. She swears she's already met me, but I had never seen her before in my life. She asks me how I like my room, and tells me about the girls who had it before me. Weird, but okay. She rubbed me the wrong way, but I don't really mind. She's fairly easy to avoid. Or so I thought. As I was taking the dog outside, I happened to glance over and see her staring at me through the window. She lowers the blinds when she sees that I saw her, but is peeking through them watching me. Later, I go to the kitchen and see her again watching me very intently through the window. Our blinds were slightly open to let light in. Then upstairs in my parents' room, there's a window in their bathroom. I see her again as I'm replacing the towels, watching. The more I looked for her, the more I saw. She was watching basically all the time. Not only from her window, she sits in her car and watches us from the street. She sits on her porch and watches. She slowly walks down the street and watches us literally all hours of the day. And she does it to her other neighbors, and she did it to the people who had our house before us. Everyone knew to keep your blinds and curtains shut at all times. Otherwise you can guarantee she watches you. It freaked me the hell out. A few years ago I went to the kitchen around 2 AM to get a glass of water. I figured, why put the lights on if I'm gonna be done in 5 seconds, right? So, 10-year-old me was in complete darkness when I noticed someone staring through our window with their hands pressed against the glass. We had see-through curtains. I screamed at the top of my lungs and froze. Mom woke up and came running to the kitchen to me crying like a baby in my pajamas. He was already gone, but I told her what happened, so she went outside with a knife to look for him, but never found him. And that's why we don't have see-through curtains anymore. I still have an irrational fear of the dark. Myself and 6 friends, aged 18 to 28, mixed European group, were on a 5-day river canoe trip up a tributary of the Orinoco around Merida in Venezuela in 1998. Our guides were an older, 60s, rough-looking German guy and a slightly younger, but shifty-looking Orinoco Basin Indian. One of our group knew fluent German, but for some unexplained reason, didn't share with the guide that she could speak it. Later told us she didn't want the creepy dude making comments to her that no one else could understand. We were 3 days in, roughing it in hammocks on the side of the river, not having seen a village for at least 8 hours. The guides kinda kept themselves to themselves after dinner, which was fine, but this evening they were a bit further away, and we could tell they were having a pretty heated discussion in a mix of German and local dialect. Suddenly, the German girl in the group turns white and looks terrified, and it takes us a few minutes to calm her down. She explains she heard the German guy talk about making sure the others will be at the place and they will have the guns, and that the crocodiles will get rid of the guys and the girls will go with them to some village the day after next. We kinda freaked out, but decide that being alone with these 2 dudes days from anywhere in the middle of the ducking rainforest, we were pretty much trapped. We decided on a plan, which, fortunately, went our way. Early the next day, we decided that the next time we saw another canoe expedition pass us, we would essentially shout and scream at them that we were being kidnapped and needed help. Fortunately, a 4-canoe group came past, and we enacted our plan. Our guides immediately just got the F out of there, didn't even protest about our crazy accusations or anything, other than to pull a sawn-off 12 gauge from under a blanket and point it at us to stop us chasing them, which kinda validated to us that they were planning to kill traffic us, and they didn't hang around to get caught. We got taken to the nearest village a few hours down a branching tributary, where we explained the situation to the local police and some soldiers that were on exercise or something. Turns out there was a suspected serial killer operating out of the Maracaibo area targeting tourists going into the forest, active since 1996. I was never able to corroborate any of the info we were told by the police using any Western media source or internet searches. We still occasionally email each other about our close call, but it's been 20 years and we've moved on with our lives. I've never told family or my wife, and I don't think anyone else ever told more than a handful of people. In high school, me and a buddy made the dumb decision to smoke weed in a graveyard around 8 to 9 at night. Summertime, so it was just now getting dark. I smoked to the point of being totally out of it. We were just chilling next to a tree when I see a man walking down the graveyard. I got a little nervous immediately, but blew it off. I then see the man pull out a handgun and aim towards something. He didn't notice us at this point and I couldn't see who or what he was aiming it at. I was so terrified I thought I was mildly hallucinating. I couldn't even move. My friend hid my side and said, "Dude, this guy has a gun out, we gotta get out of here." We both slowly got up, but like the stoned idiots we were, we hit a rock trying to get up, and the man finally noticed us. He was a good 200 feet away from us, but the second he saw it, he slowly moved towards us with the gun in his hand. We started running at this point. I looked behind my shoulder once and saw him start to run towards us as well. We booked it out of the graveyard and were finally back in my neighborhood. I was terrified for days after that. My girlfriend and I went to Walmart one night at about 11:30. We parked close with only one spot open to us on our left. As we were slowly making our ways down the grocery aisles, I happened to notice a guy out of the corner of my eye with no buggy or cart. When I looked over, he grabbed a box of something and stared intently at it. You know, not the kind of absent-minded I'm shopping kind of look. I make a side note of it and we continue down a few more aisles. After seeing the man in our aisles and vicinity a few more times, I tell my girlfriend, let's go aimlessly wander around other parts of the store for a bit so I can gauge if my suspicions are correct. About 30 minutes later we end up at the self-checkout. Guess who is sitting on the bench in front of the self-checkout with no bags? I think to myself, maybe coincidence, maybe not. As we leave the Walmart, all of a sudden I get this feeling and tell my girlfriend to stop, and I stop abruptly as well. When I turn around, this guy has almost run into us. He was following so closely and we had stopped so abruptly. He stared at me like a deer in headlights, and so did I, because I couldn't really mentally process the implications of what he, presumably, intended to do. After a brief deer in headlights, he keeps walking like nothing happened, then gets into a windowless white van that is now occupying the empty left parking spot next to my car. This was a few years ago, and I still think about it a lot and what could have happened. There were too many coincidences for that to merely be my anxiety interpreting the situation as something it wasn't. I was 12 years old, and we were 3 kids sharing 2 bedrooms. So my dad decided to put up a half wall to make a third. If I stood on my bed, I could see into my brother's room. We were young and used to throw a ball over before falling asleep. One night I was just drifting off when my mom taps me on the shoulder and says, "PSSST, what are you doing?" I thought, that's a very weird question. Obviously I'm sleeping. So I turn around to answer her, only it's not my mom. It's not a person. It looked like a 3-dimensional shadow of man. Just black. I screamed while my eyes were closed. The figure disappeared. My mom and dad came running into my room. I tell them everything. They think it's just my imagination, but tell me if I'm scared to go sleep in the room with my brother. I tried to sleep, but I was shook. My brother woke up once to go use the bathroom upstairs, and I pretended I was asleep. I didn't want him to know I was still afraid. I hear him go into my room, right next door, climb on the bed, springs, and then just stopped. I thought he was trying to purposefully scare me, so I look up to show him I'm awake and see the figure again, arms crossed with its head resting on his hands. Even though it had no facial features whatsoever, I knew it was looking at me. I try to convince myself it's just dark. It's my brother playing a prank, and I'm seeing things. Then I heard the toilet flush upstairs. It was just that one night. I never saw anything like it again, or even close. But years later, in my 20s, I was living alone and felt a tap on my shoulder. PSSST. What are you doing? I'll stop there because you'll think I'm crazy. But that was the last time I heard it. And I'm 31 now. It's not a ghost story. I will remember that day until I die. Thank you for watching. Like the video and leave a comment if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel, follow on Twitter, and join the Discord and subreddit so you never miss a new video.